is going to talk about a little bit about who moved my cheese. Please help me welcome Dave Spencer.
Thank you, Mark. Hi, everybody. How are we doing so far today? Good? Yeah? Is this your first conference? Anybody first conference? Yeah? Cool. This is actually my second. The second one I participated in. Anybody at the convention last year? Yeah? That was my first one. It's been a story of how I got here today in front of you. April of last year, I decided, I need to make some changes. I need to decide who it is that I want to be and how am I going to get there. One of the things that I want to do is be able to share ideas with people like you to be able to connect in ways that may or may not benefit you and in the process benefit me. So I thought, how can I do that? I thought, there's this thing called Toastmasters. So I visited a couple of clubs. It was nice. I heard there was this speaking contest coming up. Like, I think I'll go check that out, see what that's about. Went to the contest afterwards. Some people at the conference said they needed some volunteers for the district council, or the district convention. Next thing I knew, my hand was going up. So I don't know if you were at the convention last year, I was the one responsible for lining up the banner parade. That was the best banner parade lineup ever, am I right? But that started something for me that became kind of a turning point. At that convention, I did my banner lineup, left, started at the club, joined it in Ankeny. Good club. If you ever want to come visit a club, come visit us in Ankeny. It's cool. This was me in June. They said, we need to elect officers. And so I became a VPPR. I still don't know what that is. But I are one. So I joined in May. I'm a VPPR. I volunteered at my first convention. We went to the TLI, right? And we're at the TLI, and the area division director said, we need an area director. I don't know what that is, but I'll try. So I joined in May. It's now June, and I'm an area director, right? It's crazy. That is one of the really cool things about this organization. Because here we have an opportunity to get involved and do things, sometimes way outside our comfort zone, and really all we got to do is raise our hand. It's a no-loss situation, right? We're going through the district executive committee meetings. There's this thing coming up called huddle. I'm like, okay, huddle. What am I going to do? This is the first time since I joined Toastmasters that I didn't volunteer for an appeal, but I actually reached out. And I sent an email to Teresa and said, hey, if you're looking for anybody to speak, I'd be interested. Let me tell you, that was a scary thing. Because this went from volunteering for a request to actually putting myself out there. And there is a good chance that the answer is going to be no. And I waited a long time before I hit that send button. But eventually I said, if I want to change the things in my life to go the direction I want to go, this is a good positive step. And so I did. I hit that send button. And I thought, yeah, there's no way. I haven't been a Toastmaster long enough. I'm just brand new here. Then I got the email. Sure, that'd be great. Okay. Next district meeting. And I'm talking to Teresa. Okay, what do you got in mind? She said, how about change. On the outside, and I remember this very distinctly, on the outside I'm like, yeah, that's a great idea, change, that's powerful, wow, that's rich. On the inside, I'm going, change? Why don't you give me something hard? Or give me something easy? Like the implications of the third law of thermodynamics on intergalactic space travel. Change, I don't like change. I don't know anything about change. And that's the journey that brought me here today. So I'm going to share with you my process for putting together how are we going to deal with change. We're going to start with who moved my cheese. Now in order for us to do this, I'm going to need you, because I'm not going to do this on my own. I need you to participate. There's a responsibility with this. Because if I ask you to participate and you don't participate well enough, then if this session really sucks, it could be your fault. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do is get out your cell phones. I need some volunteers with cell phones. If you have good connectivity in here, then we're going to do that. I want you to get out your cell phone and text, get ready to text something to this number. Okay? What you're going to text to that number is that. And if you were one of those who got through, you should be signed up to take part in some live polling. Okay? Anybody get that far yet? So here's our first poll slide. It's pretty easy. We're going to walk through it really easy together. If you texted that and you got a response saying that you are part of this deal, enter A for yes, the answer of the question, have you ever used live polling in a presentation? And if you have not, do B. So as we're making our votes, you can see that this is going to be part of that participation. Here's another thing that we're going to participate in. If you did, or whether you did or didn't, we're going to do some physical things, some physical activity. How do you celebrate? Your team just scored that touchdown. What do? Awesome. Yay. Okay, so whatever your preferred method of celebration, we're going to do that on the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Yeah. All right. Maybe you do a little dance. Whatever it is that shows celebration, that's going to be very, very vital. Okay? So we're going to celebrate. We got about 50-50 on whether people have used live polling. I lost my clicker. Okay, so here we go. Where we're jumping off is with a book entitled Who Moved My Cheese? Has anybody read that book? I didn't look. Anybody not read that book? Anybody just not going to be one that's going to raise your hand? So Who Moved My Cheese is a book about change. It's a book about how 4 characters dealt with a life-changing event. Something happens, and now we have to do something. If you have read the book, hopefully, as we go through our talk, you will find some things that you can weave in with that story. If you haven't read that book, when you go home and read it this afternoon, hopefully you'll find some things that will dovetail. Here's some fun facts in my research on change. Change is unavoidable. Nothing we can do about it. It's going to happen. It's like trying to fight gravity. We can try, but we're not going to win. Change is unavoidable. It's going to happen. Can't stop it. Change is unpredictable. You may think you're going a certain direction, then something happens, and we have to change. Change does not ask permission. It doesn't say, hey, is it okay with you if, like we change? No, it just happens sometimes, doesn't it? Find ourselves in a situation where things got to change. Change, the only force capable of stopping change is death. A brilliant philosopher said that. But it is, it's going to happen. It's a fact of life. So is that the end of the story? Are we doomed? Is there anything that we can do to impact that? It's going to happen. Is there anything that we can do to mitigate that situation? So then I ask myself, what is it that makes change so difficult? Why is it hard? Why do I resist change? Why don't I want to do that? I think about these things that I want to do. I have this vision for where I want to be. And I think, why is it so hard to make that a reality? Why is change so difficult? So in one word, tell us why you think that change is so difficult. Why do we resist change? One word, text it in, and let's see what you guys think. Uncomfortable? Fear? A lot of uncomfortable, a lot of fear. Republican? Looks like we got a winner coming out there, don't we? Fear? Republican keeps growing. What's going on? It's interesting, the things that we say are reasons that we resist change. And other than Dave Spencer 994 and Republican 944, I think if we were to boil all of those down, if we were to really take away all of the pieces of that, I think this is probably where we'd end up. Fear. I don't want to change because it's scary. What if? What if I send that email and I get a no? What if I send that Teresa that email and I get a yes? They both can bring some fear, right? So, what are we afraid of? Just one word. What are we afraid of? And it better not be Dave Spencer 942. Ooh. Fear of failure, fear of the unknown. What if? What if it doesn't work? I've got this dream, I want to, what is it? Fill in the blank. I want to, whatever. I want to write a book. I want to sing in public. Whatever that I want to thing is for you. Maybe the reason that you don't take the steps to do that is the what if. What if? There's a couple different kinds of change that happen. There's the change that happens to us, that change that happens as a result of a very significant event. Maybe it's a huge loss. Maybe it's losing that job. Maybe it's not getting that job that we wanted. Maybe it's a death. Maybe it's pathways. Those huge life-changing traumatic events where we say, why God, why me? Right?
Not sure that's pathways.
Okay? Those changes that happen to us that cause that trauma, that put us into a state of crisis, are very, very real. And they happen to everybody. In fact, I would say that in this room, there are probably one or more people that are in a situation that they are dealing with, that you are dealing with some kind of crisis in your life that's causing a change that you didn't want to make. That's a little tougher to deal with. I know for me, it's been a lot of years ago, but I went through a divorce. It was a divorce I did not want. And that was hard. It was a very, very tough place to be. What I did with it is I just buried it. I figured that if this person who promised to love me forever didn't want to be with me, then why would somebody else? And so then that became my new reality. And that's what I lived in. If she didn't love me, then why would somebody else? So for 10 years, that was the way I lived my life. What I should have done, and what I would recommend if you are in that place today, is find somebody that can get in the middle of that with you, who's just going to let it be all right, and help you walk through that step by step, because it's a process, and eventually you'll come out. But if you have somebody there to walk with you, then you will have that person that can give you truth instead of believing things like I did. So I'd encourage you to do that. But these other steps we're going to add later, things that you can put in there too. But ultimately, the change that we can impact, the stuff that we can have the power over, we don't do mostly because of fear. So, what would you do if you weren't afraid? Really, seriously, what would you do if you weren't afraid? Tell us. If you're bold enough to put it up there, what would you do if you were not afraid? Retire. Those are all scary things, aren't they? We better not see Republican up there. Run for school board as a Republican? All of those things, I can see why we don't do those, because those are scary things. That means you got to put yourself out there, and there is a risk of what if? What if it doesn't work? What if it fails? What if I'm embarrassed? How many times, I can think of lots in mine, and you can probably think of lots in yours, where you did not take a step because of that fear of the what if. Am I right? So if this is our monster, if change is our monster, and we have to figure out how to deal with it, maybe we can find some things about it that we can leverage. My daughter's in the 6th grade. She's taking 6th grade algebra. Anybody understand 6th grade algebra? Because I certainly don't. We got 2. So what she's working on right now is rewriting things in their simplest form, breaking it down to its simplest form. I had to explain it that they know the official term. But if I told you the official term, which I really don't know, they would be the only ones who would know. So we're going to take this whole thing, this idea of change, and more of the change that we can impact. And we're going to break that down to its simplest elements and figure out what can we do, what can we put in place that is going to help us get from where we are to these. Wow, what would we do if we weren't afraid? So, What is change? This is going to blow your mind. If you look up the definition of what is change, this is what you get. Boom! Mind blow. To make or become different. That's the first definition that comes out. Okay, to make or become different, that's pretty simple, right? Change also refers to a difference in a state of affairs at different positions in time. So we're making things different, but we're now adding this element of time. Things that happen over the course of long periods, or short periods, maybe from April of last year until today. That change takes steps, right? Change occurs when a certain reality collides with an uncertain future. Okay? Going to the movies tonight. I'm going to the movies, Bob. And I've got my plan. I'm going to the movies. That's what we're doing. That's my certain reality. I'm going to the movies tonight. Get there, show sold out. My certain reality just came in contact with an uncertain future. Now I have to change. Now I have to adapt. So if we break change itself, just the monster, down into the simplest things, is to make or become different over a period of time and understand that there are going to be detours. That, if you scrunch it down as tight as you can, that's pretty well sums up what change actually is. It's directional. If you take stock of where you are right now, if you went out here and you wanted to get on Interstate 80 and go east, eventually you're going to get to Iowa City. If you keep going, you're going to get to Davenport. That's good, unless you want to go to Minnesota. Because you're not going to get there if you keep going that direction. Same thing with what we talked about with those things of what would I do if I weren't afraid. If the process you're in now is not going to get you there, then it's time to start taking some steps that are going to change that. There is a physics element that I found with change. Physics is a way of describing things in nature. There's gravity. You're fine. I didn't want to get in your picture. So the physics of change are these. Like the law of motion, an object in motion stays in motion until acted upon by a force. If you put an object in motion, it will stay in motion at that current rate of speed until acted upon by something else. I'm going to the movies. That's my motion. I'm going to stay in motion until I find out it's sold out. Now I've got to change. The opposite is also true. An object at rest stays at rest until acted upon by a force. So what does that look like? We've got these external forces, things that are going to happen from the outside. The boss says, hey, we're going to move you to a different position. There are external things that happen to us that will cause a detour in that path that we're in that route that we're on. There's also things that can be like the diagnosis I just got. That means I got to change. That's an external force. Sure, you could think of a lot of other external forces or reasons that we have to change. Then there's the internal forces. These are the things where we say, I want to sing. I want to run for school board. I want to be a Republican. This just sticks in my mind now. External forces, in my mind, are that motivator. It's that the motivation coming from the outside that says you have to change. I get the diagnosis, the doctor says I have to lose weight. So guess what? I'm now motivated. I'm going to go out and I'm going to run a marathon. I'm going to do 75 push-ups a day. I'm going to eat right. I'm going to blah, blah, blah. Have we done that ever? Anybody ever done that? You've got this external motivation that says, I have to. How often is that successful? Eventually, that motivation wears off, and we're right back where we were. At least that's what happens to me. Internal forces the same way. That inspiration, man, I really want to write a book. I really, really want to. But then time goes along, and a month later, 2 months later, a year later, I'm no further on my book, right? So there's a fertile ground that happens when those external forces and the internal forces combine. When there's that reason from the outside and the reason from the inside, when those mesh, that gives us an area where we can really impact change in our own lives. So how do we do that? Sticking with our theme of breaking things down to its simplest form, I looked, and I looked, and I watched videos, countless videos. How do I change? What do I do? How can I make long-term, lasting change that's going to take me in the direction where I want to end up? And here's what I came up with. It's so simple. Tiny habits.